Are you a thoughtful leader? Maybe you are. Maybe you think you are. Let's find out. I'm Mindy Gibbins-Klein. I'm author of The Thoughtful Leader and host of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Thoughtful leadership is all about thought leadership that goes above and beyond. Thought leadership that is truly new and original, exciting, disruptive, maybe even groundbreaking. Because let's face it, we need to raise the bar. My guests and I are absolutely obsessed with finding truly original thought leadership, and I'm going to bring you so many exciting ideas and opportunities, things for you to think about, and chances for you to push your thinking that you'll be very glad you tuned in. So thanks so much for checking out Thoughtful Leadership and the Thoughtful Leader podcast. I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. Welcome to the show. My guest today is the amazing thoughtful leader, Deborah Abbott. I've known her probably for about a year, and we've had some really interesting conversations. So, of course, I just had to get her onto the show. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, good afternoon, Mindy. It's such an honor to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Now, we got to collaborate together on a book, and I loved your perspective. I hope you can share the title of your chapter, and we can pursue that a little bit because it's really important.
Yes, definitely. So the title of the Success Secrets for Wellbeing, as one of the 12, is it 12 co-authors?
I think there were 11 or 12 in that book, yes.
Yeah, so my title is Organizations Don't Change, People Do Start With You.
Right. And that is the purpose of thoughtful leadership because, as I've said many times over the years, organizations don't have thought, so they can't be thoughtful leaders. People can be, but the best way to develop thought leaders and thoughtful leaders in your organization is to start with you. So I don't mean you, I mean whoever I'm talking to, listener, I mean you. So Deborah, what are your strong beliefs around this topic? Just share whatever you want to share so people get an idea what you've been thinking about.
So I love what how you distinguish, yourselves as a thoughtful leadership, inviting people to be thoughtful leaders versus thought leaders. And in fact, the energy behind these words or these terminologies is very different. The way that I see it is thought leadership is, okay, I read, I listen to podcasts and I've got loads and loads of knowledge, and I'm going to experiment and impose that knowledge, those concepts, those models, the methodology, whatever it is, and see what happens, and it's great. However, the energy behind thoughtful leadership, how I feel it again, is more, it sort of invites us as leaders to reel way back in and go, well, what is my intention? What am I here to do? Every single day, in every moment of every day where I'm interacting with others, whether I'm in a given situation, and also when I'm speaking with myself.
I was laughing when you said impose your thoughts, and that is a great word, which I've never used in any of my work, and yet that just epitomizes the worst kind of thought leadership, in inverted commas, quote unquote. There's nothing worse than somebody beating their chest and shouting about something that they want to ram down our throats, but it's not actually that interesting, much less exciting, disruptive, or, groundbreaking. So rather than pursue that, but I just thought that was funny. I like what you're saying about what do you want to be and being intentional about how you want to show up every day in every way. And I know that's your work. How have you had to become thoughtful in your work and in your life?
So I love that question, Mindy. How did I choose to become? I think I didn't choose. I think in the end it was my burnout that I had a few years ago that pushed me to the wall and said, that's it, time's up. Now you've got to do it differently. And I had to reevaluate everything, the way that I was going about helping leaders inside organizations, big or small, working, whether it's in the States, in Africa, or in Europe. I've got 15 years of experience as a leadership facilitator and peak performance team facilitator as well. And whilst I was doing everything, I believed in my work and I loved my work, and I've always accompanied people because I love people. It's my passion to empower others and to leverage the collective intelligence in the room. But there was something that was missing, obviously, hence the burnout. And it was that I had actually lost disconnection from myself. Ultimately, I had lost trust and confidence in myself. So when I said at the beginning about the thoughtful leadership, it's an invitation, I believe, that for leaders to reel way back in. And when I say that, is to go back to their core and go, where are my boundaries? What are my core values? And am I honoring them through my behavior on an everyday basis? And I know it's funny because the last few months I've been having a lot of conversations around boundaries, and it seems difficult. It's simple, yet not many people, in my experience, are able to go, yeah, these are my boundaries, they're crystal clear, and I make sure that I articulate them so that I can go about every day honoring myself first. And when I say that, it's not about being selfish. It's about self-sustainability. And so when we're able to articulate, I don't know if I'm losing the thread, but when we're able to be crystal clear about our core values and our boundaries, number one. Number two, to able to articulate and communicate those, because we can't expect other people to guess what they are or to hope they think, I know what your boundaries are, Mindy. And then work from there. So going back to thoughtful leadership, I think it starts from there, from yourself.
Which is the only place you can start. Because if you try to shape other people's values or impose, to use that word again, your ideas and opinions on someone else, but you're not walking the talk, they're just not going to trust or follow you or listen to you. So if you are in a leadership position, of course, I'm talking to every listener now, then you have a responsibility to be the role model. We talk about that a lot around here. Getting everything clear so that you know how you are leading. And, sometimes you're tempted to fall into bad habits. I know a lot of our listeners are self-proclaimed workaholics, for example. And we will talk about that. There's different kinds of boundaries. Actually, let's pick up on that thread, because I believe, Deborah, what you've said is you burned out because of some emotional factors, but you were probably working too hard, because if you were sitting around being emotional and you had plenty of time and, you might not have burned out, you might have had a different outcome. But despite those feelings, you still pushed yourself and maybe were lacking some boundaries in that sense.
Definitely. I have no judgment towards all those who are workaholics, because I was I confess, I was one myself. And it made me think about, what is this choice of workaholism, if that's a word? Why are we choosing that? So I can only tell from my own humble experience that I chose to be in that hamster wheel and to go faster and faster and faster. I was at the time working in a bank. I was spearheading a global private banking project. It was huge. So the pressure was immense, and the exposure of my role was huge as well and global. And I was even overstimulated. But overstimulated not only with the workload, but also with my environment and having to circumnavigate the political spheres. It was a very complex matrix. And there's so much that I was doing, and I kept doing it more. And it's like, for example, if any of you've been, for instance, skiing for a first time or second time or third time, and then you're no longer mastering your speed. You're going so fast that you actually realize that, okay, well, it's going to come to a stop at some point, but it ain't me going to be stopping it. It's not to want to paint a very dramatic picture, but burnout is actually quite a knock on the head. And so it was my choice to a workaholic. And being a workaholic is an addiction. It's a way of distracting ourselves from something that's perhaps deeper, that's more bothersome, and we're not ready to necessarily address at that time. So we keep on working and we invest ourselves so much in work.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was sitting there thinking, well, workaholics just love their work and they love the kudos and they love achieving and recognition. And maybe, I loved that. I was thriving on all of that in the corporate world and I was handling it quite well. I didn't think about my boundaries because many times when you're in a role, you have to kind of do what the role necessitates. But once I went out on my own, I found myself falling into that same trap of working more and more. But it was different because it was my business. And I would work some evenings, weekends. I would work whenever I could because it was building my business. So even entrepreneurs, even business owners can fall into that trap. But what you've just said right at the end about it being a distraction or some kind of, some tool for avoiding something else, that's significant. So tell us a little bit about how this plays out in your work today, these insights that you had.
So I'd like to add also to that addiction piece, which is another insight and learning that I got from on the back of the healing of the burnout, which is, well, what is my self-worth? And how much does it depend, or do I rely on extrinsic factors to define my sense of self-worth? So I've had to shuffle that all around, and I can only say that it's been such a breakthrough for me, because the conversations that I'm having today, I'm not even looking to convince people. I'm not seeking. So with my clients, I'm not seeking approval. So this is my personal journey, seeking approval, seeking some form of approval, either the signing of a deal. For instance, that's obviously, as entrepreneurs, that's one of the probably number ones. And also recently I faced quite a big disappointment of a big project that I was working on, and then it just collapsed. And at the end, the potential client went, "Thanks, but no thanks." This is after 3 months of discussions. But I didn't allow it to wear me down, because I thought, well, okay, that's them. That comes from them. It doesn't come from me. And I don't know what's going on inside the corporation, but it doesn't matter. So I allowed myself to have that disappointing feeling for about an hour, because it was quite a big shock, and it was extremely unexpected. So that was fine. And then what I did is, I'm very lucky to be living in Geneva, near Switzerland, and I can see the lake view from here. And I just went down to the lake. I went for a dip in the cold water, and I changed my body state. And that has a direct impact on your mental balance. And so I'm able to much better manage, and I have this sort of inner resilience and compass that really keeps me connected and aligned with me, who I am, and what I believe in.
So how do you use these skills and insights with clients who perhaps, haven't had the experience that you have, or the deep understanding of what they are choosing to do unwittingly? How do you work with clients in this area?
So my work is principally group dynamics and leadership in group dynamics. So when I work with leaders aside, or in parallel with their teams, I sort of get as an executive coach, we have these conversations around themselves and who they are in the system that they're working in, and also that they don't need all the answers, because in fact the majority of the answers that they're desperately pulling their hair out for, or sort of, locking themselves away in their offices, desperately trying to come up with a solution, when in fact there's so many answers that are in their teams, amongst their team members. And as a facilitator, I draw that out of the team members, and also that of the leaders. So with the team, it's so much about, you're not just a link in a team, you are an equally valuable voice and value that makes the team, including the leader. And so that is when I talked about earlier, when leveraging that collective intelligence is also leveraging that collective wisdom and being true. I create this space where they're able to explore, in a psychologically safe space, explore what's happening, in a very non-judgmental way, and going, okay, so this is where we are now. This is what happened before, but we need to craft a new way of working, or, tweak what we're doing right now so that it serves us best. And so it's really shifting that thoughtful leadership, not away from the team leader, because obviously the team leader has the final say in what's going to be, and the decisions and strategic decision making of the team, but it's much more of a joint collective effort.
And I can picture you doing that. In fact, I think I have seen pictures online. But the boundaries thing, that's still niggling away at my brain, and thinking that's a big part of shifting people's mindset and the way they're working and the kind of patterns that they're allowing themselves to continue. And so our listeners they come from all different places, all different walks of life, different levels of leadership, and aspiring leaders. So what would you say to anybody listening, considering we don't know where they're sitting, but what are your best tips for somebody to be a more thoughtful leader in terms of looking at their boundaries?
Probably, I love that question. It's quite a big question. As a thoughtful leader in terms of leading a team, their boundaries. So first of all, the thoughtful leader knows that is very aware, crystal clear about their boundaries and articulates them to the team. But the thoughtful leader also wants to know what their team members, what each one of their boundaries are, and even just going through that exercise, that open communication exercise that invites self-reflection and communicating that to the team so each and every one knows what the other's boundaries are. That's already a great foundation for a rock-solid culture.
Well, I heard you say that you need to know what they are, communicate them, and honor them. So I keep thinking about the fact that in these interesting times, I'm going to call it post-pandemic. Doesn't matter if the pandemic's still here, finished, but it has shifted things. It really has. And a lot of companies have downsized, changed the way they were working, have more hybrid teams, more people working from home. And it certainly feels different for most companies. With the added pressures, it may be easy. I'm just sort of speaking as I think, but I'm thinking it's easier to figure this out for yourself, know what your boundaries are, and even communicate them, but not necessarily be able to work in that way. So, for example, if one of the employees says, I really need to finish my work at 5 because my husband doesn't come home till 7 and I need to do X, Y, Z with the kids and make dinner and whatever. But there's a project and there's a presentation the next day, and the boss really needs that PowerPoint presentation done by 7 or 8 p.m. because he or she needs to look at it. And I'm just playing out a scenario in my head. What would your advice be when there's a conflict or just, a challenge?
Yeah. So naturally, we're faced with challenges in the team, whether it's relational challenges. And I go back to this, what is the culture? And the more that we are connected as a team and the more that we trust each other, the more we're able to, the more communication flows, and we're able to have that conversation around having to leave at 5 o'clock. And a high-performing team is a team where someone's problem is everybody's problem. And that's really about collective accountability. A high-performing team is about being collectively responsible for one another's outcomes. So if I can't do it, I'm going to ask Mindy. I'm going to say, Mindy, look, I've got something to finish off, but I'm really stuck. I've got to leave at 5 and so on. And then at least we're having that conversation rather than trying to burn ourselves out and finishing till midnight, God knows, for an early presentation the next day. So there's the common denominator of most problems inside organizations is really, it's the culture. And the more that we're able to open up, have that free-flowing communication, non-judgmental, where we collectively are accountable for the business outcomes of the team, the more we'll feel more supported from the team.
And I guess if people don't understand or unwilling to fit in with that culture, then they'll be finding a different position somewhere else, and that'll be the best thing for them and the organization, right?
Yeah, and that's what I do. No matter where the team is at, if it's a new team that's being pulled together for a project, whether it's a team that's already 5 years old and there are new recruits coming in or people have left, they're forever evolving. So the question is, well, where are we today? What is the culture that we have in our team? Because this is our bubble. And we need to find the best way where we can operate collectively as a unit. So, and even just having those conversations around the culture, what is it that we accept? What is it that we don't accept? What is it that we need? What are our expectations around? And having all these rich conversations and then putting it out there and capturing that. That's then the culture of the team that is the foundation of performance.
Very good. Thank you very much for summing it up so neatly. I can picture it. I can picture the high-performing team. I think our listeners will have really enjoyed this conversation because every single one is either leading a team or in a team, every single person. So the final piece of this really is once you have this team, once you have a high-performing team, you have the culture, you know what it is, you know people's boundaries, it's about honoring it. It's about sticking to your guns. It's about, and certainly in our case, knowing when to say no and how to say no and how to get the job done if you're going to say no. Have I got it right?
Yeah, and it's exactly that, Mindy. And it's also about safeguarding the culture. So, if you're in a team and you have two people at a team meeting who are, bickering or one's being unpleasant with another, whatever happens in that team meeting, every single person around the table is equally responsible. So either if you decide to look at your shoes or pretend that you didn't hear, and like everyone else is doing, well, are the team members safeguarding that precious culture that keeps them bound together and connected? So it really is a collective responsibility about safeguarding that culture every single time inside the team and when the team are together with a client, whether it's an internal or external client.
That's perfect. That it's been so enlightening having you here, Deborah. Yeah. And I know everybody else will have loved it as well. Listeners, you will find Deborah's bio below. You will find the show notes. But please look her up, follow her, connect with her, ask her any questions that I didn't have time to ask today. And I'm sure she would be delighted to interact and engage with you. Am I right, Deborah?
Definitely, yeah. I look forward to hearing from you. Any questions, I'm here. I'm here to answer them, to exchange, and to listen to how I can help, how I can be of service to you and your team.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Deborah Abbott. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Thoughtful Leader, and I hope it's inspired you to be more thoughtful as a leader in your business. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. An important question for you. Do you want to create a culture of thought leadership in your organization? My best-selling book, The Thoughtful Leader, is available now on Amazon and many other sites in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Please visit www.mindygk.com for more great content. That's www.mindygk.com. Speak to you again soon.